Thank you for joining us today as we talk to Messrs. Mariano and get an insight into their extensive experience and understanding of that Coliseum mountain pass corridor and what it means for Dateline potentially, and just have a general chat about who they are and what they know, and the upside. You know, we'll talk a little bit about the potential there. So I've got a few questions. Firstly, just as an intro, maybe Tony Jr., maybe you can tell us a little bit about your experiences, the projects you've worked on, how long you've been doing it, both you and your father together. You know, I know that a part of your career was, you know, spent doing your own thing, and then you've spent a large part of your career working with your father, and certainly your father is, you know, been in the industry for a very long time. So maybe over to you on that.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I've been lucky enough to work with the best in the world, and yeah, we've been working together for a little shy of 15 years, but we did work together in my younger career when I first started out. So there was a time in between that that we did different things, but we specialize in rare earths and other specialties metals, but the bulk of it is the work we do is rare earths. And we've worked, so myself, I've probably worked on probably 75 to 85 separate rare earth projects across the world in about 25 different countries. But I'll let my dad say, you know, what he's been doing, but he's been at it for many years, so going between 50 and 60 somewhere, right? And many more occurrences than I have, and so we have a lot of experience in understanding and evaluating both in the field and in the laboratory different rare earth projects around the world. Yeah. You want to add a little?
Well, I started working on rare earths, not only rare earths, but various other elements that occur in carbonatites and alkaline rocks. And I started this work in 1965. I was doing basic research with Kennecott Copper, and that's what I could do anything I wanted. It was basic research. It was a long time ago when people were able to do that type of work. I've worked on all of the deposits in the laboratory and in the field that feed the marketplace. Now, the only place that I have not done work on, I tried to get there, is Tom Tor, the Russian in Siberia, the area that the Russians have. And that supposedly has some very interesting mineralization. But I tried to get out there, but I don't think the Russians were interested.
They didn't want you there, right? You might find out too much. But you've had a long association with Mountain Pass, and I can't remember what year you told me you were working here. But you've been associated with that mine. Was it since the 50s or the 60s? I can't remember what you told me. But
really started the heavy work with them in 1966. When I was with Kennecott, I visited every year Mountain Pass as a guest because I was doing basic research, and the chief geologist there, Don Bryant, who was a very good friend of mine, was very interested in my getting involved. They even invited me to visit other carbonatites in other parts of the world, which I did.
And one of those, I believe, I think you told me you came down to Australia. I can't remember what year you came down to look at the Mount Weld project, because the Mount Weld project, which is currently owned by Lynas, was actually owned by the same entity that owned the Mountain Pass mine.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that visit when you came. What year did you come down, and what were your observations at the time, and your recommendations back to the folks that owned Mountain Pass at the time?
I began working at Mount Weld in 1980. At first, the Union Oil of Australia geologists sent me drill core, and we were looking for niobium there. So I did extensive work on fresh drill core, looking for niobium and tantalum. And I wrote a very comprehensive formal report on what I had observed. And then in February of 1980, I visited the area. I went to Perth and I looked at the drill core that was stored at Perth, and I discovered that there was supergene rare earth mineralization in Mount Weld. And that's when that program started, both for rare earths, supergene rare earth minerals, and for phosphate, for apatite.
Okay.
And I did very comprehensive reports on the Mount Weld laterite in 1980, 81, 2 reports, extensive reports. And as a result of this, my opinion was that Mount Weld could not compare with Mountain Pass. Okay, and the main reason is because of the grade is lower, and there would be great difficulties in both physical and chemical processing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
since Molycorp were very busy mining Mountain Pass, they made the decision that they did not want to get involved, and so they gave it up.
Okay. Okay. Well, certainly, I mean, it's gone on to be successful in its own right, but the grade at Mountain Pass is higher. But both carbonatites continue to produce and do quite well, but the grade and the processing is easier at the Mountain Pass deposit. The grade is higher, the processing is easier, which is part of the reason why we were attracted to that area. I mean, knowing there was a world-class carbonatite down the road from the Coliseum, we were very attracted, and we were fortunate enough to be introduced to you by the Mountain Pass people. And, you know, we went out and we did some work there, and Tony Jr. has done a lot of the work. We did the initial field visit all together, but Tony Jr. Has done a lot of the work out there of recent, along with Russell Mason, the structural geologist. So Tony, just to, Junior, in your own words, what have you seen out at the Coliseum that's encouraged you? And at some level, I think you mentioned that you were surprised at what you found out there, or maybe the amount that you found. But I'll leave you to discuss that.
Sure. So initially, prompted by some of the radiometrics of the geophysics that the USGS had put forth, there was a reason to go out there and follow up on that, because it showed some lineaments that seemed to connect the Colosseum area to the Mountain Pass area. In doing that, we've discovered some phenite rock, which is a mantly derived, or phenites are formed from metasomatic fluids that come off of alkali carbonatitic deposits. And so the recent this spring, when I went out with Russell Mason and we tried to do a full reconnaissance mapping of the Coliseum property, I was completely surprised at the amount of phenite and trachyte dikes that are showing indications of being mantly derived and associated with an alkalic carbonatitic system. And so that was really a promising sign that we were on the right track.
And of course, we've got some assays back from some of the things that you've observed and some of the samples that you've taken, and you've had time to study some of those results, and you're continuing to study some of those results. But you did mention to me some of the things that you found in there were very similar to what you see down at Mountain Pass. Things like I think you said strontium, barium. Can you just maybe explain, briefly what the significance of those findings are and how they are somewhat similar? Well, not somewhat, they're actually very similar to the Mountain Pass deposit.
Sure. I think we can both probably comment on that, but I'll start. The So typically the carbonatites, one of the signs geochemically is anomalous barium and strontium. And this is certainly true at the Mountain Pass deposit, especially with the barium. And in the geochemical analyses we've done so far on the related rocks, the phenites and related rocks of the Coliseum area, we're seeing anomalous strontium and barium as well. Yeah, and go ahead.
I'll go ahead.
And also anomalous rare earths, okay? And they are light lanthanide dominant, and that's an indication of mantle-derived material, and that's precisely what you have at Mountain Pass, okay? The presence of the barium and the strontium, Mountain Pass is running very, very high in barium, and all carbonatites are anomalous in strontium, all, even in some cases where barium may be much inferior to the strontium. So
okay,
that's an indicator for carbonatite strontium.
Yeah.
So the presence of the anomalous lanthanides as light lanthanides, and we could even get involved in some esoteric information if you compare the distribution of the lanthanides with chondrites, okay? You have no negative europium anomaly in chondrite normalized rare earths from carbonatites. And that's the case in the Colosseum area. Another indication that we're dealing with a carbonatite source.
Yeah, and of course, one of the things that you mentioned to me yesterday was that when you were working at Mountain Pass and you would drill, you described to me what you would see in the drill core, and maybe the audience would probably like to hear it from you, the way that you described it to me yesterday, regarding the proximity of the phenite to the carbonatite. So maybe if you could advise the audience of what you were seeing down there in the drill core when you were drilling.
Sure. Carbonatites contain alkali fluids that exist associated with the carbonatites. And these fluids are, they affect the country rock as well as the carbonatite. And so they're indicators for the presence of carbonatites. And if you drill the sill at Mountain Pass, that sill dips at an angle of about 45 degrees to the southwest, and it's about 200 feet in width. In drilling, in the head wall, you go through country rock, and then suddenly you run into phenetization, alkali metasomatism, which is very distinct. And then you get into the carbonatite, and you go through the 200 feet of carbonatite till you get to the footwall, and at the footwall, again, you get this heavy alkali metasomatism, otherwise called phenetization, okay? Then you're back into the barren country rock.
Right. So essentially, what you're really describing is that the carbonatite is sandwiched almost between the phenites.
That's right.
So the phenites generally in this neighborhood, from your experience, are generally located adjacent to or nearby to the carbonatite. And what we're finding up at our property is an abundance of phenites and trachytes, which is encouraging.
The trachytes are also in many parts of the world genetically related with carbonatites.
Yeah. So I guess the next question I've got for you is, in our search for carbonatites, what are there any chemical indicators as we drill that would tell us that we are getting closer to a carbonatite? In the context of that Coliseum to Mountain Pass corridor and what you know about it. So, if we see more of this, are we getting closer? If we see more of that, are we getting further away? Is there anything like that there that we could use?
The phenotization and the presence of the trachytes. In many carbonatites all around the world, you have these spatially associated with carbonatites, and they function as indicators. Now, just to give you an example, we're not aware of a carbonatite in southeastern Wyoming called the Bear Lodge carbonatite. It was almost buried. Outcrops were not very clear, and this was discovered as a result of research exploration that people were doing for base metals. Adjacent, not too far away, closely adjacent to this deposit is the Devil's Tower in Wyoming. That is phenotized, okay? And it has, if we knew that in advance, I didn't get involved in that until the late 70s. If we knew that in advance, we would have known that there was a quasi-buried carbonatite at Bear Lodge. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, and you can run into alkaline occurrences and trachytes in other parts of the world that are not phenotized, and they have not shown up spatially associated with carbonatites, but some of them are phenotized and they have carbonatites adjacent to them.
Got it. Got it.
The presence of the phenotization and the trachytes is an important indicator, especially when we're very close to mountain pass and we're in the same lineament.
Yeah.
Could also be an increase in the barium and strontium.
Oh, absolutely.
So those could be good geochemical indicators as well.
So I guess, you know, I've got a couple more questions, but the one that I want to ask you now, Tony, as Junior, especially because you've been out in the field and with your experience and obviously your consultation with your father, from what we've seen so far, you know, how would you rate the prospect of us finding a carbonatite nearby to the phenites that we've found, you know, based on what you're seeing so far?
So, I mean, there's every indication, as I think we led up to in an earlier discussion, that this is the place to.
Yeah.
I mean, so
yeah.
if I were to compare it to when I was a young geologist, I did some geochemical field work in looking for rare earths for Hecla Mining Company, and they said, well, you know, this is the area of the Western United States we want to look at. Let's pick your best idea of where to look at this point based on what we already know about these areas. And so I consulted with my dad, who had, you know, a wealth of experience on it. I was pretty young at the time. And so we picked a certain target area, and that's where I did the field work. Well, if someone were to say to me now that I've seen these all over the world, say, what is the best prospect? What do we know about a certain area that makes it the best place to look right now? And hands down, it would be Coliseum. It's just in the neighborhood of the richest rare earth deposit in the world, and the type of rare earth, the way the rare earths occur in the bastnasite mineralization in the carbonatite is just, it's what you really want. It's what feeds the marketplace, and it's what's you know, so far on them, it's one of the best sources for rare earths. So
thanks for that, Tony. I guess the audience are probably also interested to know what the next obvious step is in terms of our search for this carbonatite. I know we've done some structural mapping, and we've told the market. You know, you've given me some advice on the next obvious step, because our carbonatite does not surface. We're higher elevation, so there's a strong probability that we now know that the carbonatite is buried what are the advice that you gave me about the next steps in terms of trying to identify where to drill? Maybe you can explain why you gave me that advice and what it could mean for us.
Well, the whole point is discovering a body of sufficient size and shape that will consist of carbonatite at Coliseum, and it may be buried. It's not exposed based on the work that has been done. However, it may be just a shallow. It may be down just a number of feet.
Yep.
And that body will have a very high density. If it's a carbonatite, it will have a very high density relative to the country rock and to the limestone, even nearby, Clock Mountain, and all the country rock in that area. And so gravity would, for me, would be the best approach to the possibility of finding a body that that may be carbonatite. Okay.
Yeah.
If it is a carbonatite, it's going to have a gravity high, well in excess of 3.5, a density of in excess of 3.5.
Yeah.
So
yes. Yeah. So a gravity survey is the obvious next step, and hopefully that'll show us some targets where we can go and drill and find this thing. And hopefully you're right, Tony is just below the surface, and we're all very, very happy when we find it. You know, that's it from me. I'll just switch over to Andrew, the moderator, and see whether he has any questions from the audience that they'd like to pose. Andrew, over to you.
Yeah, we do have some questions that have come through, Stephen. And a reminder, if you do want to ask a question, just type it into the panel at the bottom of the screen. So the first question that's come up is, following on literally from what we were just talking about there, how likely is it that the phenotization that we're seeing at Colosseum is pointing to a carbonatite within the tenement area, or could it be relating all the way back to Mount Pass? Like, could it be that far away?
So unlikely. So the phenite is usually, as we described earlier, you know, either immediately adjacent to or very close to the body that's, you know, creating those metasomatic fluids.
Okay. So it's a little bit more sort of out there, sort of macro rare earth side. How do you see the supply side playing out in the US, Canada, Australia for rare earths?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yep. How do you see the supply side playing out in the US, Canada, and Australia for rare earths?
So I'd love to answer that, but that's not what we do. We're not involved in the market. We're involved in, you know, the mineralogical, geological aspects of these deposits and evaluating them for, you know, for potential mining. But after that, we don't know much about it.
And just for the benefit of the audience, I mean, one of the great things about having messrs. Mariano on our team is that their core strength is the science and the identification of the markers and the discovery of carbonatites. You know, at the company level, we make the decisions on whether this is an industry we want to be in or not. And certainly, just when you consider the industry as a whole, it's not shrinking. Demand is going up, prices are going up, and I think it's a good place to be in.
Okay, we've got a few more questions starting to come in now. How likely, or what is the potential probability of finding a carbonatite as rich as Mountain Pass?
The possibility of running into one is rich.
As rich as a good a grade as that.
Mountain Pass is it's unique. It's like Palabora in South Africa. the copper deposit. It was the cheapest copper deposit in the world to mine because it was in a limestone, not a limestone, but calcium carbonate as opposed to quartz and feldspar. So the thing that makes Mountain Pass unique is very high in rare earths. It's amenable to excellent physical and chemical processing, okay? And well, the tonnage may not be as great as Bayan Obo, but Bayan Obo is a deposit that has received its rare earths from tailings, from iron mining. Mountain Pass is a deposit that is mined solely for rare earths and nothing else. And again, they are able to make incredibly good physical concentrates, and they're able to they can come up with a 75% REO after doing some chemical leaching and roasting. That's excellent. That is excellent. And I don't think that there are many deposits in the world that are able to do that.
So, but, you know, in evaluating whether we've got, you know, we'll find something that's as rich as Mountain Pass, that's hard to say at this point. But the indications are that you know, there's a connection to this Mountain Pass system, and we're seeing these types of rocks, and it's a definite green light to look for that type of thing. One of the things that is encouraging is that you don't always get a lot of rare earths or high amount of rare earths and phenites, and yet the ones at the Coliseum that we're looking at pretty much across the board are very anomalous in rare earths. Not ore grade, but it's the phenite, it's the indicator rock, it's not the ore itself. But we're seeing elevated, you know, anomalous rare earths that indicate that the system this is coming from is rich in rare earths. So we hope for the best. You know, it's a green light to keep looking.
Thanks.
Okay. Mountain Pass talks of sulfide queen. Do you know what this is, and what's the exact rare earth element in the carbonatite at Mountain Pass?
The sulfide queen, that's just the name of the ore body that they've given to the ore body. Maybe you can.
What about it?
The question was just, what do we know about sulfide queen?
Well, that is Mountain Pass. So
okay,
yeah,
That's the name of the ore body.
Yep. Okay, the next one is, what is the significance of having trachyte dikes over several hundred meters at Colosseum?
the trachyte dikes. From what we've looked at with those, they are mantly derived and connected to this whole system, and to see the extent that we're seeing in the field exposed is very encouraging. That we have a pretty large system that's you know, supplying these dikes.
They have the mineralogy and geochemistry of these type of rocks that are spatially associated with carbonatites. Okay, you can find trachytes in many parts of the world that do not have indications.
Okay. The next two questions are actually to Stephen. What's the estimated timing, do we believe, to get the results of the gravity survey?
Well, we're actively working on it. I expect sometime in the next 30 days that we would have the results of the gravity survey. You know, it is people are just coming back from holidays in the US. It is, you know, the hottest period you can have over there at the moment, especially in the middle of the desert. So collecting the data and then processing it, you know, we're getting onto it. It's getting a little bit cooler probably in a couple of weeks, and I think things should be able to move faster from that point onwards. Certainly the geophysicist that we've engaged was a geophysicist at Mountain Pass, so he's completely aware of the rock types there and what to expect and how best to interpret the geophysical data.
Okay, the next question, I guess, is a little bit forward-looking beyond, I guess, it's a more post-discovery type question as to would the US government assist with financing some of the costs associated with developing a rare earth deposit at Coliseum?
Well, certainly they've signalled their intention to do whatever they can to assist in the development of critical metals. You know, if we find a carbonatite there and we need to develop it, I think the Department of Energy, Department of the Interior, Department of Defense, they are all actively involved in ensuring that American needs are met from American supply in terms of critical metals. So yeah, we would. There are other companies that are getting you know, money from these agencies to develop critical metals businesses, and it's no secret that this is a front of mind for the US government at the moment. So I see that as a definite yes.
Okay. This question, I'll just read it out as it is because it probably needs a technical discussion on it. What's the significance of the equal weighting of major element concentration between Colosseum phenites and the Mount Pass ore grade material as illustrated on the announcement?
So the major elements that are similar in both. It's just another indication that the system that these are coming from look geochemically similar to what we're seeing in Mountain Pass. It's not meant to be a comparison of phenites to ore, but just getting an idea of the major elements, what their distribution is, such as potassium and sodium and that type of thing. Very low sodium, both of them, and so it's just another piece of evidence that we look at to try to understand the system, you know, define the system that we're working in.
Well, thank you very much for everybody that attended. I hope that today has been informative and given you a better understanding of the potential for a discovery at the Coliseum of a carbonatite, of a rare earth bearing carbonatite at the Coliseum. Thank you very much for Messrs Mariano. I know it's late there or getting late there, and we really appreciate you making the time to do this. And hopefully we go on together and find this carbonatite, and everybody ends up in a very happy place.
Well, thank you, Stephen. It's an exciting project, so we enjoy it.
Okay, guys. All right. Well, have a good night. Thank you very much, everybody.